By the late fall of 1965, Jerry Garcia's vision for a band had begun to take shape. The Warlocks, precursor for the band The Grateful Dead, they were making their mark playing the smoky bars and strip clubs up and down the San Francisco peninsula. Jerry had Bobby the Kid Weir backing him up on rhythm guitar, Bill Kreutzmann holding it down on the drums, and Phil Lesh laying down the thunder with his bass. But it was the keyboard player, Ron Pigpen McKernan, aka Blue Ron, aka Pigpen. It was his bluesy vocals who positioned him as the frontman. And if it wasn't before long before this makeshift electrified blues band began to gather a small following here on the Bay Peninsula. Now, Jerry's outlook on the band and their future was bright. That wasn't until the day that Phil Lesh invited the rest of the Warlocks to right here, the 1012 High Street, Palo Alto, California. He invited the band members over, and it was inside this house right here where Phil delivered the news. See, Phil had been up in the city earlier that day, and he was visiting a record store, thumbing through different albums, when lo and behold, he came across one from a band called the Warlocks. Now, on a side note, this other band, the Warlocks, I've heard that they have been quoted as both the early precursor to the Velvet Underground, and I've also heard it could have been ZZ Top. The news sent a wave of panic around the room as the members scrambled to find an alternate. Someone suggested the Vikings. Someone else suggested the Crusaders. Bobby Weir, who was only 18 at the time, suggested His Own Sweet Advocates be the name of the new band. Even Garcia, who had smoked DMT before coming to the band meeting, suggested the name Mythical, Ethical, Icicle, Tricycle, but still, nothing worked. Now, with all the energy in the room starting to sour, Jerry Garcia unknowingly picked up Phil Lesh's leather-bound dictionary and flopped down in one of his overstuffed chairs. So Garcia flipped open the book, and something quite strange happened then. All the ink in the dictionary started to melt off the page. Suddenly, there was one entry just left, and that entry was The Grateful Dead. Now, Phil Lesh, he immediately loved the name with its dark overtones, while Bob Weir thought it was gross. But no matter whether you loved or hated it, you wanted to know one thing. What the hell does it mean? See, the term Grateful Dead refers to a theme in folk tales that revolves around a pattern where the main character, he witnesses a group mistreating or ignoring the burial of a man who is deceased having unresolved debts, having not paid off their debts. And driven by empathy, the hero selflessly offers money to pay for the debts or to bury the man, and soon after the hero encounters a fellow traveler who aids them in achieving this remarkable feat, grants them riches or saves them from danger of some sort. And as the story unfolds, it's revealed that the companion is, in fact, the same person who had been deceased at the beginning of the story, therefore making them the Grateful Dead. Grateful Dead biographer Dennis McNally said in his book, A Long Strange Trip, the name confused some and appalled others, but what could be better for a rock and roll band? The name implies layers and layers of depth, and it also implies that something very powerful happened inside this house that day in late 1965 when the Grateful Dead chose their new name. And as 1965 came to a close, the Warlocks, now the Grateful Dead, well, they started to collect a loyal following, a gathering of fans who loved grooving to their upbeat, sometimes weird music. And it was high up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, in the small town of La Honda, where a closed-off bohemian enclave of their fans resided. This group was known as the Merry Pranksters, and their focal point was none other than best-selling author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Ken Kesey. And it was Kesey who had this master plan to deliver LSD to the masses of people by holding these LSD-fueled parties he called the acid tests. And what does every good party need? Music, of course. And Kesey, he just happened to have heard about this little band down on the Bay Area that was playing some pretty funky stuff, and he wanted them to be a part of it. Kesey knew that they could be the missing piece to his magic parties.